Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the final Dynasty Takeaway edition of the 2025 season. Yes, there are still week 17 and week 18, but by then our fantasy season is relatively over. So Scott and I want to say on behalf of Scott and I, happy holidays to everybody. Hopefully you've had a successful semifinal season. Week 16 is just about over, Scott. We got one game left in 50 minutes, the Indianapolis Colts and San Francisco 49ers. How are you doing, my friend, this evening?
I'm doing great. That was a very lovely introduction. I think we are both doing better than Shane. I don't know if you heard the way he introed the Monday morning drive this morning, but it started out with something like, I hate all of you. I hate this game. I don't know why I'm here. Then he got it out of his system and we actually talked Dynasty for another 50 minutes after that. But doing well, man. It's been I don't want to say it's been kind of a downtrodden week, but I was looking good coming into the week. I had 24 teams in the semis, and I'm maybe going to get half through. And like 3 or 4 of them are contingent on Jonathan Taylor, George Kittle. Like they're winnable, but they have to hit their expectation. You know what I mean? We can't get a Trey McBride out of them. We can't get a game where you're like, oh, they left a lot to be desired. So I think we're doing fine, but it's just a reminder, man. You get to 1 week and out, and anything can happen. And spike week performances are magnified as well. If you were holding Matt Puka in the pocket from Thursday, it's very, very rare that you lost, just because how much that dented into the entire fantasy contribution of both teams in your matchup this week was just huge, because a lot of players disappointed. But doing well, man.
That's good, man. Yeah, you hinted on semifinals. I had a couple. I'm alive in one, barely. I got only one. It's dependent on a finals trip is dependent on Tyler Warren not getting 15 points in a PPR league. So I'm hoping that Tyler Warren is not peppered by Phillip Rivers tonight. But you talked about semifinals, and they were pretty brutal yesterday. You hinted at the Trey McBride. I mean, there was a few other just really like variance hit a lot of people straight in the face yesterday. But is there anything that really we can take away from that? Is there like a major overarching takeaway that maybe variance triumphs roster construction? Is that too bit of a hot take, or is it really more just like poop happens?
Well, so we're only 1 week away from having full complete season data. So I think there's some takeaways you can look back at, not just the final results. I think we already know, based on what we have through 16 weeks, that this is actually a pretty lackluster fantasy season, Brandon. There's not a lot of impact players this year. And now that's from a per game perspective. But you look back historically, like this is the first year where we may not have more than one quarterback finish more than 20 points per game. I think you still have Mahomes that currently is right above it. I think he's at like 20.6 or something like that, but he's out for the season. So it's kind of like, yeah, he counted, but he's gone. Matt Stafford, Drake May are the only other two quarterbacks that are even over 20. That's rare, you know? Like you're not talking about 23 points per game, 24, 25 like we've seen in the past. We're talking about the best quarterback in fantasy by a long shot. And you could say the same thing about tight end. Like the two guys that were leading those onesie positions, and I know we play super flex, but I kind of think at those positions, as they're not really battling in most formats, battling other positions for starting spots, right? Yeah, Josh Allen and Trey McBride, they were head and shoulders above their respective positions going into week 16. And a lot of teams with one or both of those are out. And they could absolutely blow up in week 17. But it's not going to matter. But it doesn't mean they weren't the right players to have. You're going to look back on this season and go, Trey McBride was a difference maker. Josh Allen was a difference maker. But this just is a reminder of what 1 week variance can do to you. Even if you had both of those players, there's going to be teams that had both of those guys, Brandon, that thought there's no way they don't get to the finals, right? And then look what happens. So I think that's just a reminder that anything can happen in a given week, but also it's a down season for fantasy. I'll talk about some data a little bit later, but it's just been one of those years where the number of players you're going to look back on this year and go, you had to have them to win. Let's pen Christian McCaffrey tonight or Jonathan Taylor tonight, but both of those guys could have games where you're like, okay, they not only were top 10 scorers for the entire season, but they got you to the finals. Outside of that, though, like you're going to look back on this year and you go, you didn't need anybody to win. There's going to be teams that have construction and different combos of players in the finals winning championships like never before.
Yeah, I was going to say, who had the Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell backfield duo being the league advancing? I don't want to call league winning, but league advancing scenario, right? Detroit is stingy against running backs. I had talked about it in the Discord before the game, and all of a sudden, you got two guys with 20+ point games, and it's like, yeah, who saw that coming? Like nobody. Yet Trey McBride struggled. Elijah Higgins, guy that we've talked about for a few years. When you guys went down to the Senior Bowl a few years ago, you talked about Elijah Higgins being, a wide receiver from Stanford who could turn into a decent tight end in the NFL. And sure enough, he shows up in week 16 of 2025 and puts together a tight end 1 week. I mean, who had him on the rosters? Not many people. So variance does matter. Variance matters. And you could have the best roster constructed team, and sometimes variance just bites you. We've been talking about it for a few weeks, but wanted to talk about a couple of situations that I think have popped up over the last 7 days, and they have some mild to moderate implications on the 2026 season. First one is Quinshon Judkins, brutal injury. All the good thoughts and wishes and prayers to him. Doesn't seem like it was the completely everything scenario, Scott, but definitely similar to the Cam Scattaboo. How are you valuing him as you enter the 2026 season? Is it I'm assuming it's a hold if you have him, but are you actively trying to maybe secure a couple more Judkins if you possibly can?
Yeah, I mean, the damage is less than what was thought. Mary Kay Cabot said he had no ligament damage in his knee, so it isn't like one of these injuries where it's like he tore up everything, right? We know he had the leg fracture and the ankle dislocation, but it sounds like he's going to be back for, she's the main voice of the Browns basically in the media, and she said he'll be back for off-season activities. So that's like they expect him back in May, June, ready to go. No questions. Like shouldn't impact his availability at all for next year. Now, I do think it matters his year one return to play. Like we've seen a lot of guys with those ankle injuries that they're not quite back to 100% right away. Like it takes half a year or more on the field to get back. But it definitely takes it from I'm worried about the Judkins career arc getting altered to now it's just a little bit of an inconvenience. You don't have an asset that is exploding going into the offseason. He's fine. He showed enough, but he's still not on a good situation, Brandon. It's not like you're super excited about his offense. Like you like the fact that he's a good player and he's going to have a workload. But I think this injury complicates it a little bit. It's hard to rank him, I think, in your top 10 running backs. And even if you do, it's because you have to rank 10. In the offseason, you may go, I just don't know if Christian McCaffrey can do it again. I don't know if Derrick Henry can do it again. You know what I mean? Like you start to not trust the older guys. But if you're going to then put it into perspective of a 1 week or 1 season bet, I'm still probably going to go into next year betting that Derrick Henry outproduces Quinshon Judkins. You know what I mean? Saquon Barkley outproduces Quinshon Judkins. Doesn't mean I value him higher, but I don't think you can put him in a category of running back that he's any more than just a former high draft pick that will be a starter, and you hope he gets back to normal. But I'm probably not going to value him as high as others, because when you're talking about that range of running back, I don't care about any of that other stuff. You know what I mean? I don't need him. I can get another year of like a fledgling Josh Jacobs or Kyron Williams that people don't trust. I'm willing to buy back into that in probably a cheaper range than somebody's. Remember what the Scattaboo prices were after he got injured? People are treating him like, oh man, he's still great. He's going to come right back. Just that wasn't a type of range of running back that I want to pay a premium for. So, he's in a hard range to value though, because if the person buying him from you is not valuing him as a dynasty asset and they're just like, oh, I know he's a starting running back, then it's probably hard to sell for a premium. But good news on the injury, though, that it isn't one of these like wrecked his knee. You know what I mean? We don't know if we'll ever see the same guy again. Yes.
It's not an Ayuk injury. So Bashal Tutin in a second or Judkins?
I would take Judkins.
Okay. I'm trying
to think the I'd be more interested in a deal where I'm getting a first and I'm getting a slightly lesser bet than Putin. I think Putin going into the offseason, especially if ETN leaves, is going to still have some steam. It doesn't mean he's the starter, but hell, if anything, it probably points towards the Jags really should just bring ETN back if he's willing to stay. You know what I mean? But yeah, I would want a different type of deal. I think that's a fair value, but I'd still take Judkins.
Okay. I mean, just trying to think of different ways, creative ways to get Judkins without having to just spam for a singular 27 first, right? Because I don't think that's probably, again, the way you want to use your 27 first in the late December, right? As you get new
Well,
picks.
would you sell for that?
I probably would just let somebody.
I think that's the line. I'm glad you transitioned to that because that is the line of this type of player. I'm not saying he's damaged goods, but when I'm trying to buy something with the 27 first, I don't really want to buy anything that has a ton of interruption. He already had the situation that's not great. And now he has this injury. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean he can't overcome both. And by the start of 2020, we could be looking at Quinshon Judkins by the start of 2027 as being a top 5 running back in the NFL. And the Browns have turned it around by then. Their offense is actually trending upwards. And you're like, wow, I wish I would have bought this guy right when he got injured. But if I'm buying something for a 27 first, I'm just going to be a little more selective than to use it on that specific player.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's just trying to think of, creative ways as you get into the off season. Like, what are the creative ways to get, pivot off of a Judkins? If that's what the price is, I think a lot of people probably in the comments are going to say, Scott, you're crazy. I'm just going to go buy at that price. But hey, that's fine. Like, you can buy and others can sell. And that's the beauty of a league economy. And, that's just how, dynasty football really should be played. Is, some people are going to value guys in different ways, and you all play with a process and you just see what ends up happening. Now, another guy to transition a little bit here, another guy that maybe is on the downside is more Tua Tagovailoa, who got benched by the Miami Dolphins. They put Quinn Ewers out there yesterday. I don't want to say he looked good, but he was an adequate backup. But the Dolphins came out and pretty much said, it's probably not going to be back in Miami come 2026. Mike McDaniels will be there, but Tua is not. Now his contract, it's an albatross to that team. So they're going to have to do some deep soul searching, and maybe they get like a Russ Wilson type deal with Denver where you're just going to let him go and he's going to end up signing somewhere else. But how do you value him? Do you value him going into the 2026 offseason like he's going to be guaranteed given an opportunity like Russ? Or is it going to be more like a Jameis Winston situation where Scott, he's going to probably have to sit behind somebody for a little bit and then hopefully he gets the opportunity to start a handful to half a season of games in 2026.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think they kind of did us a favor. If you're holding Tua shares in Dynasty, I think the team's kind of done us a favor. They benched him. They made it clear that he wasn't going to be, basically, this was one of those where they knew they were already screwed for 2026 with his contract. They didn't want it to impact 2027, and it could have if he would have gotten injured. So they put him on ice. That's why they made him the third quarterback. Now, he was actually there yesterday. They showed him. He was on the sidelines. Like, he didn't seem, he didn't remember when the Raiders did this to Derek Carr, and he basically just left the team and went home. And Tua could have done the same thing because they did it for the same reason. Like, we don't want him potentially to get another concussion or to get injured. And then it's like, oh my God, we basically ruined any ability to get out of his contract. And so they put him on ice. It's been no secret that they're kind of done with him. I actually listened to a show right after they announced that he was out, and they had talked about how, like, kind of quietly, McDaniel has been hinting they wanted to get rid of Tua since the beginning of the season. Like, way earlier in the year. Like, you could just tell there was a fracture in the relationship. And so this was a convenient way for them to say, you know what, step aside. You're never going to play here again. The contract is terrible. Go look it up on Spotrac. It's a terrible contract that there's no way out of. There's no way they can trade him. I cannot see a team taking on his contract as is, which means eventually the Dolphins are going to do the song and dance with, like, well, we're going to try to find somebody that'll take him, and we're looking for deals, but they're going to end up having to just cut him. And hopefully they do that sooner than later. You know what I mean? They don't let it drag out until the draft. And then they're like, oh, yeah, we should probably cut the guy. Like if no one's going to trade for him in February when, all the deals are getting worked out before they can officially be announced, he's just got to get cut, which it hurts the Dolphins. But I actually think it hurts Tua's value a little less. You know why? Because it'll be a clean break. You know what I mean? There is no more albatross contract following him. There is no more pressure to start him by trading. Let's say a team gave up a 7th rounder for him because they didn't want to take on the deal, but that's all they would give. Like, this is going to be a clean break. He's gone from Miami. The contract is Miami's problem. It doesn't follow Tua. It actually probably allows him to go somewhere with less financial pressure for the team, right? Hey, we'll give you a 1-year deal. It's $8 million. You've already got this contract from Miami. We'll give you kind of a prove-it deal and give you a chance to earn the opportunity. I think that's the best thing you can hope for. I don't think he goes somewhere where they're like, this is your job. I think he easily could go somewhere where they're interested in kind of rehabbing a quarterback, but that could also mean Baker Mayfield. That could be Daniel Jones. That could be Sam Darnold. Like, it might not be that he's starting next year. So how do you value him? Do you value him as a starter? When I say starter, like, would you rather have him or Daniel Jones, him or Michael Penix? Those guys are in the same boat, but I think they're much more likely to be on the same team they are now and eventually get the job back as soon as they're healthy. So it feels like he's even a longer shot bet than not. I mean, Tua or Shador Sanders? I mean,
yeah,
saying,
I know.
You're kind of betting on. I think I would almost take Shador because I think he's got a better ceiling for fantasy if he starts. The question is, does he start? I mean, I like Shador, but the fact that they keep losing and he's not playing great, his odds are fledgling by the day. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
the Browns are getting closer and closer to not needing to go back to Shador next year. At least the odds that they take a quarterback is getting higher and higher by the day. But, like, that's the range that he's at. Like Kirk Cousins or Tua.
Kirk Cousins.
Because Kirk Cousins probably starts for the Falcons to start the year, and he hasn't looked awful. You know what I mean?
Jameis or Tua?
Tua.
Okay.
You got to compare him to guys that like have a legit, like, okay, here's another one. Jacoby Brissett or Tua. Now, we kept saying Jacoby could be in the training for getting the job. I mean, Brandon, the team with Jacoby, they just got crushed every game. I don't see how you could just go back to him and say, hey, we took our lumps last year, but hey, did you watch our offense? It was pretty good, but we're going to go back to the quarterback that ended the year 0-10 as a starter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's the list, right? Here's a list. Mac Jones, A-Rich, Malik Willis, Trey Lance, Tua. I mean,
that's a great list. I would take Mac Jones over Tua. Yep. I think he's played better and has a closer shot at getting a chance. It may not happen next year, but I'm totally fine just kind of holding Mac Jones because he will get that shot, whether it's next year or the year after. I would take Malik Willis over Tua.
I'll take Malik if he stays in Green Bay. I'm not going to play the rolling,
but he's a backup, Brandon. That's
he is a backup.
He's not going to stay in Green Bay if the league views him as a potential starter, because Green Bay is probably not going to pay to keep him around. I'm hoping he goes somewhere, and put it this way: if he goes to another team, I would rather have him over Tua going to another team. But if he stays in Green Bay, then you give me Tua.
Because like I would value whoever the Minnesota backup is pretty highly, because I don't think they're just going to stick with Brosmer. I think one of the dudes that's listed, I think possibly somebody that's on the list in front of us or Tua could be considered. Because here's the thing: if Tua's cut, he's going to do exactly what Russ Wilson did. He's going to take the minimum salary because he's already been paid out. I mean, his dead cap for next year is $99 million. Like, he is well compensated, and he's going to be on a vet
Tua
minimum.
Could be if he's cut, he could be the guy that goes to Minnesota. They've had a history of bringing in those rehab projects at quarterback. I could see him being the latest that goes there if they think it's a good fit. Richardson's an interesting one, because I do think the league will view him as a guy that deserves another look. And for a lot of these guys, like Richardson especially, I don't need the other look to include him being a good quarterback. I need the other look as other people think, oh my gosh, look what he could do now that he's here. I mean, what if Richardson goes to Miami? They totally clean house. Like, I'm still not 100% convinced that they bring McDaniel back. I mean, Richardson's not going to be in a McDaniel system. But like, what if Richardson goes to a place like the Raiders or Miami or somewhere where it looks like he's got a really good shot to start? All you need is people to think that's the case. And I think I'd rather have that. I think I'd rather have the event that triggers somebody to think there's a starter. I think that'll happen faster for Richardson, for Willis, maybe not for Mac Jones because he's still on the Niners, but that's a good list.
I think the takeaway from this is, regardless of how you feel, Tua versus Mac, Tua versus A-Rich, Tua versus Malik or Trey, like, I think if he's even down in that group, you probably should go take a stab at Tua if he's down, because the prices that probably all those guys are is very obtainable. And I think that's really the takeaway for me is, if you are doing the any QB on a 53 strategy, Tua probably lumps in with these guys. He's not closer. He's not in the same tier as the back end bridge starters as of right now. I think he's probably in a hold pattern until you want to make the move before the free agency window, when there is a decision finally made and you're trying to catch. You don't want to play catch up on it. You want to make the bet before, so that people can't try to drive the price back up. Because like, if you could get him for a late second, because I don't think anybody's going to sell him for a third. People are become too stingy on that kind of stuff. But if you can get him for like a 208, 207, I would take the shot there, knowing that if he gets the starting job and he does boost, there's probably going to be at some point a window where you could possibly cash out for either another quarterback with a little more safer floor, or you can just liquidate for a higher pick asset in 2027. I think that's probably what the realistic scenarios that you're hoping for by acquiring Tua.
Yeah, it depends on your build. Like, this is the range where the next Sam Darnold, the next Geno Smith, the next Daniel Jones, this is the range that they come from, where you buy into the fact that it's uncertain. It's not clear. There's no future that's guaranteed. But typically the guys that get another chance to be a starter for a whole season, it is typically Anthony Richardson, Tua, you know what I mean? Guys that have been in a position to kind of command something previously. Like, that's normally where those second, third, fourth chances come from. So I like that. I think that late second is a perfect. I mean, if you have a pick this year that's like 204 or later, and you have any quarterback on a 2 deep build where you maybe don't even have a second starter, so you're looking just to collect some of these guys that maybe have opportunity going into next year, you could do worse than sending like the 206 and a running back for one of those quarterbacks. And maybe it looks like a little bit of an overpay, but it's not if you're right. And you go, oh, week 1, I can start Anthony Richardson. You know what I mean? It's not.
Yep.
And if you're wrong, guess what? You still have a backup quarterback that we've seen how viable backup quarterbacks can be for a month stretch if you need them to play. I mean, look at Cousins. Look at Brissett. Like, going into the championship weeks, people would have paid a second to get one of those guys because they need a quarterback down the stretch. And they have pedigree. They have tons of experience. So get ahead of it, especially if you want to get out of this class. This year's mid-second is not previous years, Brandon.
Nope.
These picks this year, you kind of have to treat them like, it shouldn't be what is a second worth. It should be, do I want to make this pick? I have a lot of leagues where I want to get out of some picks, and I'm willing to kind of take a little bit of a quote-unquote bet on the players over the picks, which is not typical for this time of year, but it's a different class.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about some data? Because I know if anybody knows Scott loves some data. Scott is always on Dynasty Takeaways dropping data. So I'm going to leave the floor to you for the next few minutes on running back versus wide receiver flex data, because you hinted at some data early on with the quarterbacks not getting to the super high elite threshold of 22 points per game. But there's a little bit more data that maybe speaks to the 2025 season as a whole, Scott. So I'm curious what data game we're going to play here now.
Well, I'm going to try to lay this out as succinctly as I can, but most leagues you have to start 3 receivers, right? And you have to start 2 running backs. And we're not getting into, super heavy point per carry or heavy tight end premium. Let's just assume pretty standard, PPR scoring. But I'm just pulling the data from receivers versus running backs, because most leagues you do have to start more receivers than running backs. You acknowledge that. That's the typical setup on most platforms. But if you look at the receivers this year that have averaged, so we're talking about the receivers this year that have averaged at least 14 points per game. So we're not talking about a massive threshold, but there's not a lot of them this year, Brandon. But of the receivers and then the running backs with the same criteria. So just think of like flex players, receivers or running backs that average 14 points per game or more for the season. And just look at the average availability of those players. So you'd think, oh man, receivers are more stable, right? But last year it was the opposite. Running backs, most of the running backs in that range, like the starter / flex range, stayed healthier than the receivers. This year, same thing. Average number of games played for the receivers in that range. Now, Rashee Rice counts in there. So unfortunately, he's one that you kind of knew about. But still, the average number of games played for the receivers in that range is only 12.44. And the average number for the running backs, 13.8. So just right there, just real high level, that tells you that in the starting receiver and running back range, you had more attrition at receiver than you did at running back. Not what people would have expected, right? People would not have thought, oh man, all the running backs in that range, I mean, guys like DeAndre Swift, like they were healthy. Javonte Williams, they didn't get injured, but you know who got injured? Some of the receivers, you know what I mean? T. Higgins. I mean, you could have seen some of those coming, but I think the thought is, oh, running backs are more volatile because, well, they get injured more. Well, not necessarily the case. So it was more average games played for the receivers than the running backs in that range. But here's the second thing. This is where it gets really interesting. So I looked at this a couple weeks ago on Destination Dynasty, but I pulled it up again through week 16. So remember that ratio, Brandon, 3-2, right? You got to start 3 receivers and 2 running backs. Everybody above that or after that goes into your flex spot. That makes sense?
Yep.
So number of receiver games this year. Didn't look at the number of players. Didn't look at how many of them made up this sample size. 312 receiver games have been over 15 points. 247 running back games have been over 15 points. So when you compare that to the ratio, the 3-2 ratio, the receivers are actually 15% under the expected value if you're looking at that ratio. So that's another feather in the cap of the running backs. Not only have they stayed healthier, but blow for blow, if you assume 3 receivers, 2 running backs, the running backs have actually outperformed the receivers in that flex range as well. So I don't know what this means. This is the second year this has happened in a row, though. So what that tells me is 2 things, and then I'll kick it back to you. One, the receivers that are in the non-elite range are just not as valuable. The guys that are in that, oh, that's a wide receiver too, they matter a lot less, right? They're not as predictable. They're not as good. They're not getting used as much. Like they're just not as necessary. To lock in a 13.5 point per game Cortland Sutton means nothing. If you just told me I could stream based on Trinity every week, I don't even need that guy. I could find 3 or 4 random guys to fill in that spot and basically get the same production. The second takeaway is the running backs in the non-elite range. The range that for years, I mean, on our old show, Shane and I would just be like, trade the hell out of that running back. I don't want DeAndre Swift. He only scored 14.2 points per game, Brandon. There's no way he will hold up. And lo and behold, what does he do the next year? Just keeps doing it and doing it and doing it. It's like that is the same as having a wide receiver too. And then you go, well, I'd rather have the receiver because, well, the running backs get hurt more. Then you're like, well, not really. This data actually says the receivers are just as likely to get hurt in this range as running backs. So I don't know if it's predictive, but what it tells me is that flex running back range, the Jalen Warrens, the DeAndre Swifts, the Chuba Hubbards, that range is still probably the best bang for your buck if you're just looking for guys to throw in as starters. Are you going to win the championship with that? Who knows? It's very week to week, just like we saw with this variance. Like you're not aiming to just have DeAndre Swift in your flex. Like you hope that there's something better, but what's actually better? Like he's going to go down as a clear, like starting flex player, but it's one of those coming into the year where you're like, oh, I don't really feel great if that's one of my flexes. So running backs are better flexes for the second straight year, and they've been healthier. So that's the takeaway. Hopefully I nailed that.
I mean, that was definitely a good takeaway. And the word that kept coming to my mind, the reason why it looks like that way, you said it this afternoon in voice chat, starts with a B.
Bias,
right? It's running backs break down faster. Therefore, I don't want them, right? You even just hinted at it, right? They just break down faster, right? Because they take more they take more shots, Scott. Their direct carries take more shots, but like the data is telling you that maybe it's not. And
Well, and
I'll be
funny?
interested to see how like drafts are this offseason.
Correct.
Right? Like
well, we have a bad running back class. So
yeah.
Are you really going to bet on, and I'll give you an example of a guy that didn't really break down, but he fell backwards this year. I'm not going to bet that David Montgomery breaks down. You know what I mean? His role might not be as good, but this feels like we should learn from this, especially with this year's class. I'm not saying hold on to every single running back that's old or that is trending downwards or both. But just when you think about the next time somebody offers you 2/3 for Alvin Kamara, you know what I mean? Kind of think about like, what is my goal with that trade? If anything, can I go the other way? Can I take some of these thirds in this class? Can I take a third and a fourth and go buy me a James Conner? And I understand that I'm not investing in anything that has future value. It is just I can get one of these cheap flexes without having to pay in the moment for something that is much less likely. Because the thing about buying like a James Conner is if you're right, you don't just get 2 weeks of a flex. You could get 10 weeks of a flex. You know what I mean? So the bang for your buck, if you're willing to take a little risk, especially with the older running backs, even the non-older running backs, but just the guys that you don't deem difference makers, like those feel like the ones that have the best shot to run it back and get an opportunity again, given this year's rookie class.
Yeah, no, I completely 100% agree with you. Take some shots, take some bets. I mean, the off season is for most people is here. It's on we're on the precipice of it, but it's been a fun season. We do have a super chat, so I want to make sure we get to that before we get out of here. From San Fran Trader, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate you. PPR Chip. I'm assuming that he's trying to win the championship. He's got Adonai Mitchell as an option, Michael Carter, or Raheem Sanders. Scott.
Ugh. Man. I mean, Raheem Sanders is going to get everything he can handle.
Yeah.
So off the rip, that feels like the best bet. I mean, Michael Carter still got a decent workload. He does get the Bengals. I anticipate, I don't know if you've noticed, the weather is supposed to be 60 in Ohio this weekend, Brandon. So I actually think that, that Bengals Cardinals game could still be a very fruitful for fantasy. So I think you could probably go I would probably lean Michael Carter. I'm not trusting a Jets receiver with Brady Cook. I'm just not. No. So I'd probably go Michael Carter over Raheem Sanders. But for the conversation we just had, it's probably one of the two running backs. I'd probably lean Carter right now, though.
Yeah, I think I'd probably lean Carter and just hope that whatever Kiner was doing in the second quarter, because that was a weird usage. I don't know if you were really watching some of that, but it was just like...
Yeah, Carter had 9 touches in the first 3 drives, and then it was stalled for a little while.
It was like they were like, we got to recharge his battery for the second half. We're going to bring Charlie Kiner out. We're going to bring Kiner out here. We're going to give him 2 drives. It was just very strange usage, but yeah, I would probably lean Michael Carter in that situation. One more, Scott, for one of our members, Mr. Jordan Jackson. What are we buying Connor and Dobbins range for? What is that range? Is that just like do I got to pay like 2/3? So I got to pay can I give you that Jarquez Hunter in a third? Because there's guys like that are going to one of those guys that probably came from this draft class is probably going to pull a Kamani Vidal next year. We just don't know which one it is, right? Like somebody's going to have a role that we just don't see. But can I send them as a bet?
I think you can include David Montgomery in there. I think you can include Joe Mixon in there. You can include Alvin Kamara in there. Think of the guys that are older, have been injured, had bad seasons. You don't like their roles. There's at least 2 narratives about them where you go, oh, nobody wants that guy anymore. But I think Mike nailed it. This is exactly what I was thinking before. Can you take a third and just a player that you bucket as, I'm not sure what I'm doing with this player? I like Jarquez Hunter, but the way that it stands right now, there's probably not a lot of opportunity for him next year. And you've seen nothing from him oh my God, you haven't even seen a flash from him really to where if he got opportunity, you would even trust what it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So can I take somebody like that plus a third and go buy me an Alvin Kamara? And the other person, because here's the thing, Brandon, 3 years ago, I would have been like, oh man, That's a leverage deal. You know what I mean? And I'm looking at it like, especially in this year's class, the only thing I really value a third for is just to replenish my RBs on a 53. So I'm essentially trading you like Jarquez Hunter and another Jarquez Hunter for something that I hope I can maybe get 8 weeks of a flex range player out of. If you get a guy like Dobbins or Connor, and you're not buying those guys because you think they're going to start and they're going to start all year. You're literally talking about the value of getting, can I get a month of 80% peak James Conner? That's all I need to pay off that trade. You know? So yeah, that's how I'm trying to do it, especially if I don't want those picks.
He's worth the 101, and that's the only pick he's worth. You don't. I get it. I get it. He's going to be really good, but
well, how many picks is he worth in 2026?
I mean,
if you have 3 picks and they're all outside the top 3, would you give them all for the 101?
No.
You wouldn't give the 104, 110, and 111?
Nope. I would rather go use those capital
your shots, or use it
I would rather
ways.
I'd rather go a different direction personally. I don't think I need to invest, like, unless my team is absolutely like stacked to the gills. Like I got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Bijan Gibbs. Like it's almost like I think we've gotten to the age, at least I have, where I don't need to do the Saquon Barkley deal. Right. I don't need to throw
most of the leagues we're playing in, they don't suit giving up 3 firsts for one player either.
Yeah. Like I like, it's probably closer to a first and a second. Right. Like if I can do like James Conner or not James Conner, James Cook, because I know Mike's saying it, like I'm going to try to pivot. Yeah. But if I want to go the other way, Mike, like I would do like Cook and a pick, like a Cook and 202 for Jeremiah Love, or just stop. But yeah, just buy later. There you go. Just buy later. Cause eventually he's gonna, like all great running backs, they all stumble out the gate and you can go buy them later. That's probably
look at the end of the year. We've come full circle. The RB1 for the RB1 for the week at a rookie was Ashton Genty, and RJ Harvey has been a league winner down the stretch the last month. Those are the only rookie running backs you want anymore.
I mean,
look where we came from
Ashton Genty
6 weeks ago.
Ashton Genty didn't even have, I think, 40 fantasy points over the last 5 weeks, and he puts 40 burger up. Like, Again, variance matters. Variance happens, and you just got to deal with it. And that's probably been the easiest thing to talk about over the last few weeks. But it has been a fun 4 months, Scott. You've helped me out on this show. You've been kind of the sidekick to me. You've allowed me to grow as the host here. I want to just publicly thank you for helping me out. And this show has been fun. We're not going away forever. We're just taking a few weeks to enjoy the holidays with our families. Dynasty Takeaways will be back in some form over the course of the off season. I know there's a lot of stuff that there's a lot of fun stuff that we're going to do. I know there's a lot of talk of some content ideas over the off season. And as we kind of gear up, even though the fantasy season is over, the draft season is literally right there. It's right on the precipice. Like I can already sense there's going to be some mock drafts and some other stuff that we'll keep close to the vest that is going to be happening. But if you want to continue with some of the conversations that we're having here, make sure you join the links below. Like, subscribe, join the Patreon, join the conversation. Many people that have given comments tonight are guys that hang out in the voice chat with us, and we're going to get you prepared for the 2026 season. That's one thing we're going to do, is we're going to prepare for the 2026 season. Scott, you got anything before we head out and go watch this game tonight?
No, perfectly said. I mean, this is just a taste of what our community is like, where we jump in on a random Wednesday afternoon, just talk about this stuff. And sometimes it leads to 2 hour, 3 hour long sessions of almost really cathartic for everybody that has an idea, and then it explodes. I mean, honestly, a lot of our conversation and topics that we put out on content comes from the conversations that we have in the community. And then you get the Shane morning drives, which, I mean, I know I said it earlier, but
if you want to envision somebody driving in Philadelphia traffic on a Monday morning,
well, then you add the Shane personality on top of it, where it's just like, hey, you guys got any trades? And then it's just like he immediately interrupts it by cussing out the driver that cut him off.
The cyber truck that just cut him off. Yeah. No,
join the community, man. It's that's where you know, we're out there, we're in there some days 4, 5, 6 hours a day, like just in the day, just hanging out. Like it's our, you know, it's our people. You know what I mean? It's our friends. So
It's all about community. It's all about our community, and it's one of the best in the area in the space. But appreciate everybody. Have a great holiday, whatever holiday you celebrate over these next 2 weeks, and we'll see you in 2026. Until then, take care. We're out.